The air in Nashville carried the faint tang of diesel and honeysuckle, a city that hummed with ambition but clung to its roots like an old oak refusing to fall. I stood in the living room of my parents' house on Maplewood Lane, a two-story craftsman that leaned slightly under the weight of its own history. The walls, once a bright cream, had dulled to the color of old parchment, marked by decades of laughter, arguments, and the quiet erosion of time. I'd saved this house 3 times. Once when Dad's back surgery left him bedridden for 6 months, his construction business teetering on collapse. Once during the COVID crash, when the stock market gutted half their retirement savings. And once last spring, when the furnace gave out just before a late frost, and I wired $4,200 to the contractor before Mom even had to ask. Today, though, I wasn't here to fix anything. I was just helping Dad scan paperwork for their health insurance, a task I'd done a dozen times before. James Carter, my father, never could wrestle the printer-scanner combo into submission, even after a decade of cursing its buttons. "You're good with tech, Ellie," he'd say, though I'd been in project management for 12 years, not IT. I didn't correct him anymore. It was easier to let him believe I was some kind of wizard with machines than to explain my actual job, overseeing timelines, budgets, and people who thought they could outsmart deadlines. The dining table was a mess of papers, medical records, Medicare forms, a stray utility bill. I moved through them with the efficiency of someone who'd spent years cleaning up other people's chaos. Then I saw it, a cream-colored folder, thick, neatly labeled in Mom's careful cursive. Estate. Plan final copy. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that, even as my fingers brushed the cover. But I'd paid their property tax bill last week, $2,141, drawn straight from my savings. I was picking up their blood pressure meds after this, like I always did. So yes, I opened it. Inside was their will, notarized 2 months ago. The house, fully paid off after years of my quiet contributions. Their remaining retirement accounts. A life insurance policy worth $150,000. All of it left to my brother, Ethan Carter, age 29, jobless, still sleeping in the basement bedroom he'd claimed since high school. Ethan, who'd dropped out of college twice, chasing a music career that never got past garage jam sessions and YouTube clips with 200 views. My parents always said he just hadn't found his path yet. My name, Eleanor Carter, appeared once, in a single line. We love both our children equally and trust them to care for one another. That was it. No mention of the taxes I'd covered. No nod to the savings I'd drained without being asked. Not even a thank you. Just a polite way of saying, "You don't need anything, Ellie. We don't owe you." I stood there, the scanner humming, softly behind me, its green light flickering like a heartbeat. My hands didn't shake, but my breath caught, sharp and uneven. Dad shuffled back into the room, his coffee mug steaming, the same chipped mug he'd used since I was a kid. "You getting through that stack, Ellie?" he asked, voice light, oblivious. I held up the folder. "Is this how it is, Dad?" My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. "Everything to Ethan?" He froze, coffee halfway to his lips. Then came the sigh, long and heavy, the kind that said he'd been dreading this moment. "It's not what you think," he said, but his eyes betrayed him. They knew exactly what I'd found. I didn't answer. What was there to say? It was exactly what I thought. I set the folder on the table, deliberate, and stepped outside to the porch. The swing creaked under my weight, a familiar sound from 2 summers ago when I'd replaced its rusted chains myself. That same week, the deck railing had collapsed, and I'd paid a contractor $1,800 to fix it because Ethan was between paychecks again. Back then, I didn't mind. I was raised to step up, to take care of things. I grew up in this house, shared a room with Ethan until I was 13 when Dad finally finished the basement. I could still see us painting those walls blue, the 3 of us, Dad, Ethan, and me, laughing as Mom brought lemonade and called us our little team. Some team. I stayed in Nashville after college because Mom said she couldn't sleep if I was too far away. I turned down a job in Boston, a 6-figure offer with a clear path to a corner office, because family mattered more. They never asked me to sacrifice. They just never told me it wasn't required. There were the small things, covering their car insurance when they were short, buying groceries when their SNAP renewal got delayed, calling the credit card company to negotiate late fees. And the big things, like wiring $11,000 from my savings 4 years ago to catch up their mortgage. I did it without question, without hesitation. I just wanted them to feel safe, secure, not worried. And now, after all that, I was a footnote. The porch swing creaked again as I stared at the old oak across the yard. Ethan had carved his initials into it once, EC plus JL, some high school girlfriend who'd long since vanished. I wondered if he'd ever paid to have that tree trimmed, if he even knew it cost $800 last year after a storm nearly split it in half. Did they ever think about what I gave up? Not just the money, but the ease, the peace, the life I could have built somewhere else. Or did they just see me as the one who didn't need asking, because I always showed up first? Mom stepped out, wearing her pale blue cardigan, the one she always wore when she had something heavy to say, the one I'd bought her with a gift card for Christmas, while Ethan gave her a burned CD of his songs. She'd said she loved both. "Eleanor," she said, not too soft, not too sharp. I didn't look up. She sat beside me anyway, the swing, dipping slightly. "We didn't mean for you to find out like that." I nodded once, letting the silence stretch. I wasn't going to fill it for her. She let out a breath, not quite a sigh, just a release. "It's not that we don't love you," I said nothing. "What do you call love that forgets your name when it's inconvenient?" Her hand reached for mine, warm, trembling slightly. "Ethan's had a rougher time. You're steady, Ellie. You always have been. Steady, strong, reliable." Words that sounded kind until you realized they were cages, labels that let people take from you without guilt. I pulled my hand back. "You could have told me," I said, voice low, even. "You could have asked." She looked away, toward the yard, and then she said it, quietly, as if softening the words made them lighter. "We had to co-sign for Ethan. He needed the help." The word landed like a tap, not a blow. But I heard everything in it. They didn't just leave me out of the will. They'd already tied themselves to him. Real numbers, real debt, real risk. "How much?" I asked. No answer. "Mom, how much?" Still nothing. Then, barely a whisper, $35,000. I stood, the swing creaking sharply behind me. The wind picked up, the old wind chime clinking once before falling still. I looked at her, not angry, just tired. "You didn't choose him because he needed it. You chose him because you already owed him." Her eyes widened, but I wasn't looking for a response. I was done waiting for one. I didn't know the price of forgetting me until that moment, but I felt it now, heavy as the house itself. The days that followed were a quiet unraveling. I didn't text, I didn't call, I just stopped. I canceled the auto deposit for their utility bills, deleted the calendar reminder for their medications, paused the grocery delivery that arrived every Thursday at 4 p.m. No drama, no declarations, just an empty space where I used to be. I thought they'd notice immediately, but a week passed in silence. Nothing. By the second week, the texts started. "Dad first. Water bill came in higher this month. Can you check the account?" I didn't answer. Then Mom, "We're out of the low-sodium crackers you always bring." Ethan forgot, apparently. I left it unread. They weren't concerned yet. They assumed I was busy, moody, tired from work. Maybe they thought I'd come back. like always. By the third week, the tone shifted. Mom's next message was blunt. The mortgage is due. Can you send what you usually do? No greeting, no warmth, just a line, a number, a need. I stared at it for a long time, then typed, "Ask Ethan. It's his house now." I hit send and didn't wait. 5 minutes later, she called. I let it ring. Another message. "Please don't be like this. We need to talk." But there was nothing left to say. They'd made their choice. I was just living like it mattered. That evening, Ethan texted, "Ellie, don't make this a big deal. Just help them like always. Like always. Like routine. Like I was nothing more than background noise." I wrote back, "You're the one they chose, Ethan. Be the choice." He didn't reply. In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring in the sun. The next morning, a transfer request came from Mom, $3,200, the exact amount of the overdue mortgage plus penalties. No note, just the number. I declined it. A minute later, the phone rang, then again. Then a text from Dad. "You'd let your parents go homeless?" I almost laughed. They weren't homeless. They were just uncomfortable, learning what I'd carried for years without asking. I turned off my phone. They didn't lose me when they wrote me out of the will. They lost me when they assumed I'd keep giving. A week of silence followed. No calls, no texts. It was the quietest I'd known them in years, and it felt louder than their begging. I started sleeping better, cooking for myself, waking without checking my phone. But silence never lasts in a family like mine, not when there's blame to pass. The first sign was a voicemail from Aunt Linda, who rarely called. "I'm not taking sides, honey," she said, "but your mom's worried sick. Maybe just talk." To them. I knew then they'd started talking to others. I checked Facebook, and it didn't take long to find it. A photo of the front porch, Mom and Dad smiling tightly, captioned, "We gave everything to our children, but sometimes giving isn't enough." Dozens of likes, a few concerned comments. Ethan's stood out. Some people think family is about money. They forget it's about showing up. I closed the app, not angry, just hollow. They weren't just disappointed. They were rewriting the story, turning me from caretaker to villain because I'd stopped showing up to be used. Then came the envelope, plain, no return address, slipped under my apartment door. Inside, a foreclosure notice. Copy only, not addressed to me, but I knew the house number. I sat with it, staring at the paper, then flipped it over and wrote, "Maybe you should have left it to someone who could manage it." I didn't send it. Instead, I checked the county website. Their property was listed as at risk, behind on payments, no buffer left. They'd burned through their savings, probably trying to keep up appearances, hoping I'd cave. Ethan had spent it all. The money meant for security, for stability, for his future. Gone. There was a time I'd have stepped in, called the bank, negotiated a grace period, moved funds. But now, I poured a glass of water, sat at my kitchen table, and let the house fall without me. Sometimes you don't need to set the fire. You just stop carrying the water. The post started small. Mom shared a vague update with a sunflower emoji. "We raised them with love. We did our best, but sometimes love isn't enough." No names, but I knew. So did anyone who knew us. Aunt Trish commented, "You two are such amazing parents. You deserve better." Dad followed, less subtle. "We gave everything to our children. Time, money, love. We thought we raised them right, but you can't control who turns their back on you." He tagged me. No call, no message, just a post for the world to see. I didn't respond. I watched it grow. Dozens of likes, comments from family, friends, people I hadn't seen since high school. One wrote, "This generation doesn't understand sacrifice." Then Ethan shared Dad's post. "Some people only care when they're getting something. I'd give anything to protect Mom and Dad. I guess not everyone sees family that way." I read it twice, then once more. The man who hadn't paid rent in years, who drained their savings, who watched the house crumble, was painting himself the hero. The comments were worse. "You're such a good son. Your sister should be ashamed. They gave her everything. She just wanted more." They didn't know the truth, but they didn't want it. They wanted a story, and my family gave them one. I might have stayed silent, let it pass. But then I saw her name, Clara, my cousin, the one who once called me the glue of this family. She liked the post, left a heart emoji. No comment, just that. It hit harder than I expected, maybe because I thought she saw me. I closed my laptop, sat in the dark, and felt something break. Not loud, not messy, just a quiet, final click. They weren't just rewriting the story. They were erasing me. They came on a Thursday. I should have expected it. Texts hadn't worked. Money requests were ignored. Guilt had gone stale. The front desk called at 10:42 a.m. "Ms. Carter, your parents are here, and a man who says he's your brother." I stood in the hallway outside my office, staring at the tiles. "They're asking to come up. Say it's urgent." I took a slow breath. "Tell them I'm not available and they're not expected." A pause. "They say they'll wait." I nodded, though no one could see. "Then let them." 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Mom, we're downstairs. Open the door." Another. "We're not leaving until we talk." I didn't rush. I finished my meeting, answered 2 emails, then walked downstairs. They stood by the building entry, too close together, like they'd rehearsed it. Dad, stiff, holding in a lecture. Mom, clutching her purse, eyes scanning. Ethan, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. They turned when I stepped through the door. No one spoke. I stayed where I was, arms crossed, calm. "Eleanor," Mom said, voice on edge. "We need to talk." I looked past her. A delivery. Van rumbled by. I didn't answer. Dad cleared his throat. "You'd really let us lose the house over this?" I let the words sit. "You really thought I wouldn't." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You left me out. You gave everything to Ethan. Now you're here asking for the same support I gave for years without question." Mom stepped forward, softer now. "We thought you'd understand. You've always been strong." I nodded. "You used that as an excuse to forget me." Ethan muttered something about not asking for this. "But you took it," I said. He looked away. Dad's hands were on his hips, impatient. "We fed you, raised you. You owe us something." I almost laughed. "I paid that debt every month, every year, and you erased me anyway." Mom's lip trembled. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I stepped closer. "Then why did you wait for me to disappear before realizing I was holding it all up?" I said nothing. Ethan reached for the door. I held up a hand. "Don't. You're not coming up. You're not coming in. I won't be your answer this time." No yelling, no scene, just stillness. They stood there, 3 people who once called themselves my family. I was done trying to be seen by people who only looked when they needed something. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't need to. The silence I gave was louder than anything they could shout. They texted for a while. Mom with soft words, Dad with cold blame, Ethan mostly quiet. His last message, "You think this makes you better?" Walking away. I didn't answer. Days later, I walked past Maplewood Lane, not planning to, just drawn there. The street looked the same, cracked sidewalk, half-painted fence. But the house had a for sale sign, faded shutters, dying grass. The porch light was off. The swing I'd fixed was gone, so was the wind chime. I didn't move closer. I didn't need to see inside to know what had collapsed. That house never kept me. I kept it. And now it was someone else's problem. My phone buzzed as I turned to leave. Missed call, Mom. Missed call, Dad. A voicemail I didn't play. I muted the phone, slipped it into my coat, and walked home in the cold, slow air of a late autumn afternoon. Not angry, not vindicated, just free. But freedom has a way of twisting. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Clara, my cousin. Not a text, not a heart emoji. A call. "Ellie," she said, voice low. "You need to know something." She'd been at the house, helping Mom pack. In the basement, buried under Ethan's old guitars, she'd found a second will, drafted a year before the one I'd seen. It split everything evenly, house, savings, insurance, between Ethan and me. Mom had cried when Clara showed it to her, said they'd changed it after Ethan's debts piled up, after they co-signed his loans. "They thought you'd always be there," Clara said. "They thought you didn't need it." I hung up, not angry, just numb. The twist wasn't that they'd once valued me. It was that they'd rewritten me out, believing I'd never notice. I didn't call them back. I didn't need to. The house was gone, and so was the version of me they'd counted. "On some debts you don't owe twice,"